Welcome back to Self Love and Sweat, the podcast, and Self Love and Sweat radio, wherever you're listening. This is going to be a great episode today. I'm excited. Our guest is Andrew Sendejo. From gritty safety to savvy entrepreneur, 12-year NFL veteran Andrew Sendejo transitioned seamlessly from the gridiron to the boardroom. This San Antonio native defied the odds, rising from an undrafted All-American at Rice to an NFL starter. His journey is a testament to resilience and business acumen. Welcome to the show, Andrew. How you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
So good. Okay, so undrafted to starter and released, I think it said 3 times. How was that for you, and what was that like, and what was the brain game there?
Yeah, I think anybody that is undrafted in the NFL, you're always trying to find your home. And so that is kind of the typical story for a lot of these undrafted guys, bouncing from team to team. And so you finally find a situation, a style of, defense or offense or special teams, a coaching staff that really likes you, a GM that likes you, and you can kind of stick around. But I think, being released from different teams and whatnot, obviously you kind of ride that roller coaster of like, is this actually for me? Is this like, should I pivot and go do something else and like get into the real world? But, just kind of one of those typical deals, like very cliche, but just kind of sticking with it and just being confident in yourself and just kind of seeing it through.
Yeah. What were did you have any self-doubt after being released? Maybe like the first time, maybe you were like, okay, I'll get back on the horse. But then after the second and third time, was there any part of you that was like, maybe the NFL isn't for me? And like, what were those voices? What did they say?
London, there was times where I was playing in the NFL and I still was like, I don't know if I should be out here right now. Like, this is out of my league. But yeah, you definitely are kind of going through that, especially just, your whole life of growing up and wanting to be a professional athlete. To be there and then to kind of see it in person and be like, wow, this actually might not be, for me. You kind of go through those little dips, but I think at the same time, you would also see other players all around the league, either make a mistake or miss a play. And you're like, I know I can do that better than that guy did. And so there would be these times where you would get kind of knocked down in a sense, and then you would see another thing that would give you hope. And so I think just having that back and forth happen all the time, it kind of just kept me afloat to where I was like, no, like I can play in this league for sure.
Yeah. So a little like imposter syndrome, even when that 4th time you came back. And then I guess from there you had your 12-year career in the NFL. Still there was that, am I good enough? Can I do this type of feel?
I think, yeah. Cause even as I, in my role on the team, being a special teams player and then elevating to where I was a starter, once I became a starter, then it was a whole kind of another transition and kind of the same kind of deal where it's like, okay, am I good enough to be a starter? Like maybe I'm just a special teams player in this league, and then, continuing to be a starter and playing better and better. And then once I got towards the end of my career and, my 10th, 11th, 12th season, I'd had enough games under my belt to where I was like, okay, I'm a full blown starter or special teamer. I can kind of do anything now. I'm the oldest guy on the team. I've been around for a while. So then you play even better because you're just playing with so much confidence at that point.
Yeah, you had enough like skin in the game.
Yeah.
And you showed up anyway. I talk about this a lot with my clients and on the show, like courage, tenacity, all that stuff isn't just like built in. It's like a muscle. You like are scared shitless and then you do it anyway. You have that imposter syndrome and you keep showing up. Like, does that resonate with you?
Yeah, you almost have to. It's like a mix of being kind of like stubborn and naive and confident and like all wrapped into one, to where you're just like, I'm just gonna keep going, and just like keep doing this over and over. In football we have all these different little cliches as far as like pounding the rock or like all these different deals, but I feel like that's kind of life in general. Anytime you're trying to accomplish something. That's a rare kind of exclusive feat, like playing in the NFL or building a business. and just kind of, like I said, just sticking with it and don't let in the downs. Don't get too low. Don't get too high, and just keep steady and keep it going.
Pounding the rock.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
It doesn't break on the first time. You have to keep hitting that thing until it finally cracks. And so that's very, for football, especially just such a long season. And throughout the season, you're going to have some games you win, you lose, in life, in business, all those things. And the rock will eventually crack, but you got to keep slamming and keep hitting away. And so I think that's just always, kind of a good analogy for what we do in business and in life.
Yeah, I like that. That's kind of what I thought it meant, but yeah. I would never played in the NFL, so I wasn't sure what it meant to you guys.
I don't think I've actually ever pounded rocks either. So but it makes sense.
For sure. So when you mentioned like some of this imposter syndrome or these feelings of like, can I do this? Like, okay, so my dad was a baseball and football coach for high school, mainly baseball. So I remember some moments of like being a kid and like hearing the discussions, but of course, like nobody's in the locker, like you guys are in the locker room with you guys. You guys are like, we see on the field, the lights, the uniforms and the fireworks, and we get all, but like, is this something that you would discuss with your teammates? Was there open dialogue about some of these fears and frustrations or these imposter syndrome feelings? Or is this something that you like kept inside and didn't share? What's that like?
I would say mainly inside. Yeah, there's not a lot of, a lot of these football guys and guys in general kind of just have this alpha persona. Whether it's, guys being too prideful, but typically you wouldn't kind of say it aloud like the way I did of like, man, I don't know if I like belong here or whatever. Cause you have that inside, but when you go on the field, you have to like flip your whole mindset. But I think guys in the locker room, you can kind of tell by body language and the way that they're getting corrected in the meetings by their coaches, if the coaches are really on them, you can tell when guys are a little frustrated or whatnot. So you can kind of see those symptoms, if you will, from guys. But so you don't really need to I guess you don't really talk about it to your teammates like that. I think the only way you kind of address it to other teammates is if you're like a younger player and you're having problems with a certain play or a certain technique or something, you would reach out to the older guys like, hey man, can you show me how to do this or whatever? And that's kind of the version of getting help and like speaking to somebody. Cool.
So like, hey, can you help me with this play or help me understand how I can do better? Yeah. Or maybe I would imagine, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you noticed your teammate maybe having more, let's say like somber or upset body language, you might like smack them and be like, let's go, bro, or something like this.
Yeah. Or like, like you could tell if guys are getting frustrated and, you could just like on the side where you're walking, be like, hey man, like, don't worry about that. Just like keep doing that like really well. You're doing really good at that. Like, it's just, you can kind of see the body language after a while and things like that. But yeah, you're right with, getting help, so to speak, just kind of like reaching out to an older player and be like, hey, where are your eyes on this player? Like, what are your keys that you're looking at? And so you're trying to just always like pick this information out of their brain because they've seen it a million times. And so if you could kind of absorb some of that knowledge, it'll help you tremendously.
Yeah, I think asking people who are, let's say, like wiser or who have been in the game longer in any facet of life, right? Whether it's business or sports or whatever. I have a lot of friends, really close friends actually, that are like in their 60s and 70s, where I just like, yeah, they have more life experience. They've done the hard thing longer. They've had just like crazy roadblocks that probably I can't even, imagine. And I resonate with what you said of like reaching out and being like, hey, what do you like gaining that perspective? What do you see that I don't see right now? Yeah. What did I miss? How can I do better? Did you do that a lot? Do you think that that's why you were so successful in the NFL and had such a long career and were at some point the oldest in the game, to use your words, because you reached out for that mentorship?
Yeah, and I think it's just you almost have to. There's just no way to really go into the league and not get help like that, and just and not have that advice from like the older veterans on the team. And so being on a couple different teams, obviously, like when I wasn't a starter, whoever the older veteran safety was, I'm like, what, all the questions that I just kind of talked about, I'd ask them, like, what are you looking at? What are you doing here? Like, how do you study film? You're trying to figure out, all your pain points too, of like, hey, when you're covering that guy, like, what are you, what's your thought process on this? But then also asking the other side of the ball. So I would go ask the quarterbacks, because like the safeties and the quarterbacks are kind of like always directly kind of competing in a sense of, without getting too technical, like we're showing a certain defense to try to confuse the quarterback's looking at the safeties to see like what we're doing. But so I would go ask the other side. I'm like, hey, what are you looking at here? Or like, what am I doing that's giving away what the play is? Or like, how do you know that I'm going to be going to that side of the field, and just things like that. So I think after a while, you just kind of, you realize you don't know everything. You realize you have a lot to learn, and you let all your pride go aside, and you're just like, hey, like I need help. Like, how to help me with this? And even to your coaches and everything. And so I think that's a part of probably just, the male persona of being a little like alpha and prideful to where like, oh, I don't need help. But I actually think it's, more alpha to reach out to get help, and because that will actually elevate you even more. So
snaps for that.
Yeah. So always reaching out. And, even now in business, I've only been retired for 2 years. So I'm basically like fresh into the real world. And I've gone to a ton of my first year out, a ton of different meetings. I'm on these calls. There's all this different jargon and business language that I don't even know. And it reminded me of being a rookie in the NFL, and the coaches are talking about all these plays. And I'm like, I have no idea what they're talking about. And using kind of what I've learned in the past of like not being too prideful, I don't really care that if I don't know what that jargon means. So I'll literally ask in the middle of like a meeting, I'm like, what does that mean? And I probably look, dumb in the moment. They're like, how does this guy not know that? But I always think about it like, this is your expertise. Like, I just got here. And so if I took you into the football meeting room and drew plays up on the board, like you wouldn't know what the hell I was saying either. So that's fine. Like I will eventually learn that. So I think that's helped too, to where just for me to kind of drop the pride and not try to act like I'm smarter than I am, or that I know things that I don't know. I'm just like, hey, I don't even know what that means. Like, what does that mean? And you also will catch people using things that they don't even know what it means, because then when they try to explain it, they're like, well, it's basically this. And I'm like, okay, so you don't even know what that means. But so a lot of what has happened in my football life has helped and prepared me to transition into business as far as just, being confident, preparing, studying, learning, being able to work long hours, all those things that I did in football have kind of set me up to be a successful businessman.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's like the most motivating, at least from my personal perspective, is like when I look at the history of London, it's like, okay, well, I did those 3 hard things. So this is the same, but different. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to show up. I like the phrase, the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. Some people might push back or disagree, but I just feel like, no, I showed up when that was hard. So what's the difference? I'm still going to show up when that was hard. I rose my hand to ask the question, like you mentioned in football, to ask for perspective, and you're going to do the same there. And I think that's that momentum that you generate in one area of your life can really carry on into other areas of your life. Before we transition a little bit into like your transition into the business world, I just want you to brag on you a little bit. Like share with us about what your career was like, what teams you played with. Like, yeah, it was 12 years. Like, that's really cool.
Yeah. So I was undrafted out of Rice. I kind of have I've told this story a lot. So some people are like, that's a really crazy story. And to me, I'm kind of like, I don't know. I've heard of stories where guys, it was a much harder path to get to the NFL, but I was undrafted, unsigned, and I went and played in the United Football League, which is around now, but it was around, it folded, and then they restarted it when they merged with the XFL. So it was like a developmental league. I went and played there, and then I got picked up out of that league to the NFL. I went to Dallas, got released, went to the Jets, got released, and I did a bunch of workouts with all these different teams. Nobody signed me, and I finally signed with the Vikings in 2011. I was there for 9 years, and so got to kind of rise my way through the ranks there. As far as my first couple of years, every year I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to make the team. Okay, I'm definitely making the team, but I'm just a special teams player. And then it was, okay, now I'm working on competing for a starting job to I'm a solidified starter on the team, leader, kind of captain role. So it was that was kind of the beautiful thing about being in one place for so long, is you get to kind of build your name there, the organization, the city, the community, whatnot. And then in 2020, I went to Cleveland, and then in 2021, I went to Indianapolis. So as a Texas native, I was in all the really cold, teams. So I would live 8 months out of the year in the cold, and then I would finally come back to Texas in the off season and thaw out for a little bit. But so yeah, I was able to get 12 years in. And I think just from where it started to where it ended, if you would have told me I was going to play 12 years in the NFL, I would have said, no way. I think coming out of college, especially at a place like Rice, that's not known for sports, it's known for academics. That was the objective for going there, was to get a good degree and get a good job. I was a 2-star recruit out of high school. I obviously wasn't drafted or signed out of college. So
what does that mean, 2-star recruit? Out of 5 stars?
Yeah, out of 5 stars. So your 5-star recruits are these really big name high school recruits that go to the Power 5 conferences. So a 2-star recruit, you might have a D1 offer here or there, but usually you're going to get some 1AA or Division II offers for sure. So, I think going from 2-star, I had some good high school teams, but, I wasn't just this crazy, 5-star type stud that was going to go to a UT or something like that. So, I think just kind of being able to play 4 times the average length of someone in the NFL, be able to play for one team for a long time is always a goal, because, people will kind of remember you oh yeah, you played in Minnesota for a long time, versus if you're kind of bouncing around every year, you don't get to make as close of friends and teammates. And, now I have a relationship with, Minnesota and Minneapolis, because I was there for so long, and I still go back every year to go check out a game. But I think overall, at the end of the 12 years, I think I was just, I think because I was I just want a taste of the NFL. If I just get a tryout with a team, I would be happy. And then I got there and it wasn't good enough. And then I finally was on a team, and then it wasn't good enough. I wanted to play. And then I was playing, and I was well, now I want to be a starter. And so just always kind of this vicious cycle of never being satisfied led to, being able to play for 12 years. And it's been great, because now I have, on top of the business stuff, I have the time to go do the things I couldn't do while I was playing football. So football is during all the holidays. So you don't really see your family. You don't get to do Christmas, all these things. And you're just so wrapped up in work that it almost holidays didn't exist anymore. And it almost devalued the, how, precious those moments are with your family. And so now I get to go do those things, go be with my, nieces and nephew and mom, dad, and stuff like that. So been able to, kind of make up for some lost time with family and things like that. So, it's been good.
Yeah, I bet that feels good. When you started the story, you're yeah, I've told it a lot, but are you proud of you? When you hear that story and you look at that, are you proud of you? Honestly, just curious.
Yeah. I think if it was someone else's name and you just handed me that paper, you're hey, read this story on this guy, I'd be man, that guy, that guy's a hard worker. If I just didn't know, I'd be that guy is a hard worker and is going to figure it out and kind of, find his way out of the mud, so to speak. So.
Yeah. I like that. Just curious. Because I think sometimes, we look back at our history and we forget to be like, wait, I did that. So just wanted to
Yeah,
create that space here because that's really
you,
cool and super badass.
I think you kind of just not become numb to it, but I think it just because you've seen it and heard it so many times, maybe it loses its effects over time. But then every now and then I'll kind of look back and I'm like, oh shit, like that's hard to do. Like it's just hard. It's just hard to get drafted and stay in the NFL for 12 years, let alone go through the kind of path that I had to. So, yeah, proud.
Nice. Let's talk a little bit about your transition out of the NFL. That was your life for so long. I imagine like your identity. I spent most of my 20s living in Austria, working for Adidas Runtastic, and I did a lot of fitness events in front of thousands of people, these live workout parties, not to the caliber of the NFL, but I remember from myself, like once that was done, everything shut down in COVID. I took that hat off and just transitioned into something different. I remember being like, wait, like, who am I off stage? Like, it was just go, go, go and do. And then when I took the time to land, I was like, it was like a re-getting to know process of who I am now and who I'm becoming. How was that for you? Was it hard to like leave the identity of an NFL player? What was that kind of journey like? And is it still kind of happening? Because like you mentioned, you're fresh off the boat, sort of.
Yeah, I think there's certain things that are tough to adjust to, but I would say personally, there was actually while I was playing football, if I ever met anybody or met people, I would never even say that I played football. If I met people in Austin, I'm like, oh yeah, I live half the year in Minnesota. I live here, whatever, for work. And I just leave it at that. Because like for multiple reasons we can get into later, but I feel like I got so used to, like not having to, like I never talked about playing football that it wasn't like that was the only thing I was known for. And I think I prided myself on being more than just a football player, but
Cool.
it always kind of stays with you. Like even now being done, people, they're like, this guy played for 12 years. Like you're still the football guy. And so I think maybe current players get nervous that like after football, like they won't have that kind of, clout around them, but it still kind of carry with you for a long time because it is like a special deal. But I would say, my transition too has been like just really kind of funny, interesting things that I miss about football. And people always laugh at this because they're like, do you miss it? And I'm like, I mean, yeah, you miss, the game and things like that. But there's also a lot of things I don't miss about like the stressors of the game. And, going into the season, you're like, shit, I'm about to be in this maze for like 6 months of just working every day, physical, mental exhaustion. And so those parts I don't miss, but I do miss every morning you could go in and there's a full breakfast buffet. You don't have to cook. You don't have to clean. You don't do anything. You just go in there and it's everything you get for breakfast. You just put it on your tray. You eat it. You can get like custom omelets, everything, smoothies, already all pre-made and pre-ordered. And then you just go get in the hot tub and just relax. And then you start your day. So I would say when I got out of football, one of the things I'm like, wait, so I have to cook this and I have to clean this? Like, this is ridiculous.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Real life, Andrew.
Insane. I've adjusted since, but I think a lot of the friends I made playing football, they're only just a call or text away. So that kind of like camaraderie of a lot of guys talk about like missing the locker room and things like that. Thankful that I also kind of have friends outside of football that kind of give me that same camaraderie and locker room feel. And so I guess, there are some areas that kind of make up for it. I think you understand when you sign up for this game that there is going to be this time in your life where you have to adjust. It's like, realizing that you're not going to really be able to hit that high again. But at the same time, being thankful that you were ever even able to achieve something that high, as far as that feeling and that sensation. So something that most people don't get to. So, I think overall, it's it is a transition, but I feel like just, the people I have around me, some of the business things that I have going on have kept me busy, have made the transition a little bit easier than maybe most. But again, you'd have to probably talk to a bunch of different guys and see how it is. So
yeah, I'm sure the perspective is subjective. So that breakfast buffet, it reminds me of like being at my favorite nice bougie hotels and you go down for breakfast and the omelet buffet that you mentioned. So
yeah,
that's really funny that you said that, but I get it. Yeah. I mean, the meal preparation, the wellness, the community. What about like, I'm sure you still train like and work out, and I'm sure that never leaves you, but like, what about aggression? Like, I don't know specifically. I know a lot more about baseball positions. I watch a lot of football, so I like know the game, but like, do you ever just like want to run and like smash into someone? Like, how do you get that out?
no, I don't actually. And when I watch football now, I'm like, oh my God, that looks so violent at times. I
Ouch.
could never do that. When they put it in the HD slow-mo, it looks way worse than what it is. But I don't, that's another thing. I don't miss any of the contact or anything like that. I had 8 surgeries while I played in the NFL.
Damn.
2 of those were on my back, so I don't really exercise much anymore. So that is an area that
Okay.
it's hard to kind of get that release. And the way I try to drain myself now is just through through the business and what I got going on there. And so yeah, there's just there's times where I'm like, man, I really would love to go do that, but I'd probably be like laid out for about a week or two, just like in pain. So another part of playing the game is that you realize like your body might not ever be the same after that, but in my eyes, worth it.
Yeah, I agree. When I watch football and then those slow-mo things and someone's twisting and you're like,
Yeah.
and I imagine, do you just like have so much adrenaline that you don't even really feel it? Or like
Yeah, that's
at
basically
the end of the game, are you just like donezo? And then I guess you have like all your massage people and like all the things to love on you and get you back into shape to get out there the next day. But like it hurts, right?
Yes. So that was always like the rule of thumb is that if it hurt during the game, you knew it was actually hurt because you had so much adrenaline. Usually you don't feel anything. And then the next day you're like, oh, wow, that really hurts. And you'd have some surprise aches too that like something would pop. You're like, why is this hurting? Like I didn't even get hit there. So you know during the game that like there's a couple of plays here and there. You're like, okay, that's going to hurt tomorrow. But usually in the game, unless you actually seriously got injured, didn't always hurt. But yeah, you have your whole lineup of body work people, your masseuse, your dry needling, acupuncture, like, everything you can think of. There's almost during the season no limit as to like what you would do to feel good and feel better so that you can be ready for the next week of practice and the next game.
Nice. So, what does life look like for you now? Tell us more about what you're doing in business and like, I know you mentioned spending a lot of time with family, celebrating holidays, like grounding down a little bit more.
Yeah.
Tell us about that and what business you're starting or that you've started and what you do there.
Yeah. So, since being done playing, I went kind of full time into BrainTree Nutrition. It's a brain health supplement company. We realized while we were playing, so we started this at the end of my career, but while we were playing, there weren't a lot of safe, efficacious, banned substance-free products that we were allowed to take that helped with memory, focus, and neuroprotection to help with all the repetitive TBIs, concussions, everything like that. So a co-founder, his mom, is a neurologist, and so we brought her onto the team to help kind of formulate everything. And then just with our knowledge of nutrition, supplementation, and just going through a very, very thorough kind of R&D process and due diligence on this area, we decided to make a product to maximize brain health and a line of products using neurologist formulated products with ingredients that are backed by human clinical studies. So we wanted to make something and kind of change kind of the stigma on a lot of these dietary supplements. People are often like, oh, it's the Wild West and you can just make whatever. Well, there are times where it is like that. If you're getting something on Amazon that you haven't really thoroughly checked out, that it's made in the USA, that it's made in a GMP certified facility, they could have just taken those ingredients, had it all made in China. It gets shipped to the Amazon warehouse and you're getting it from there. And you have no idea what's in there. Versus all of our products are made in an NSF, GMP, FDA registered lab. So that ensures the potency, the accuracy of the dosage, and just the highest standards for manufacturing practices. And because it's all here in Austin, we're in the lab, in the facility. We get to see everything from start to finish. So we basically have eyes on the product throughout the entire process, so that we can give you the purest, most potent product that we can. And so this kind of BrainTree really started, like I said, kind of like an investment. My co-founder, he was done playing. He also went to Rice with me, played in the NFL, is like a master formulator when it comes to supplementation. You can pick up any product on the shelf and hand it to him, and he'll be able to tell you basically everything of all the ingredients in there. That's the level that he's at, like mad scientist level. So, you know, going into the brain health space, it was, you know, my last play of my NFL career was actually, I got completely knocked out, like a really bad concussion. And, you know, just the segue into it made sense because it was, you know, kind of like it was an investment. Then it kind of became a hobby. And then I decided to just kind of take over the whole thing and really like take it to the next level where I knew it could go. And so that's where I've been spending most of my time on that, just continuing to, you know, improve the company, scale the company, grow it, talk about it, everything that I can, passionate about it, continuing to research new ingredients to help improve people's brain health. I would say that's probably one of the most fun areas of this, is that I get to guinea pig and sample all these new ingredients and researching studies on new ingredients. And so I'm learning a lot on multiple fronts, on the business side, on just brain health as well. And then outside of that, I started doing a lot of real estate, you know, investing, developing when I was playing. And, you know, I still do a little bit of that on the side. So that's kind of every now and then I'll just, you know, do my real estate portion. I'll block off some time to look through listings and different like potential projects and go check out different projects if there's any opportunities there. I would say that's probably, I don't know, maybe 10% of my time now. The other part of my day I will spend with our venture capital groups, 4th and 1 Ventures. So it's an angel group of all NFL athletes, and we're changing the way that athletes can invest. And so while I was playing, it's just your traditional investment opportunities. You get a lot of real estate deals, obviously the stock market, your financial advisor, putting your money into different areas. And so unless you're an A-list player, you don't really get access to these early stage companies to invest in. They want like the big name guys. But now that we have this group, we've been able to allow been given access to invest in a lot of these companies. And so giving guys the opportunity to have control over where they put some of their money and something that they actually want to get behind. So I'm an advisor for 4th and 1 Ventures, and a lot of what I do there is just trying to use my connections and all the guys I know that are still playing in the NFL to, you know, say, hey, there's this opportunity that I wish I had while I was playing. If you want to like join this group and get involved, you can learn a lot. You know, you can get behind brands that you want. And, you know, I always tell the guys, you know, instead of getting paid to post someone's product and promote it, like now you own the product, you know? And so that's been a really cool, fun, interesting kind of venture. And then on top of that, I'm also in the middle of planning a wedding. I got engaged.
Congratulations.
A month ago. So thank you. So that also, I usually spend my Saturday mornings doing some of that and just going through all the different things. So I'm learning a lot on wedding planning, business, all of it. So I stay pretty busy.
And I guess for the record, we should say it is Saturday morning when we're recording this. Well, maybe a little bit later for you. Yeah. So thank you. And thank your fiance for letting us cut into wedding planning time just a smidge to talk today. I'm very grateful. Two things I want to touch on before we wrap up. One of them is I love what you're doing to educate other players in the NFL on how to be smart with their investments and their money. I would imagine that there are just like, some players who come in and probably have a very good career and make a lot of money and then probably spend all of it or don't know how to invest wisely or don't know how to approach that from like a longevity standpoint. So I think that's super, cool. I think I don't remember specifically, but I know there's stories of, professional athletes or rappers or like whatever that like make it really big. Yeah. And then you buy all the things and then you forget that like you might not always be that professional superstar bringing in those big paychecks all the time. And so I think that's really cool that you're teaching that. Yeah, that's
definitely one of the stereotypes behind really anybody that has gone from no money to a lot of money. And you try to teach guys, just even with us on 4th and 1 of like, even these types of investments we're doing, like, here's kind of some strategy that you should use here. And so it's been good to educate, learn, give guys opportunities. And so it's just, even for me, I'm on both sides now, like as an owner of a CPG brand, and then also being on the investment side. It's been really awesome because I get on these calls with these CEOs that have companies that are way further along in the process than we are at BrainTree. And now I get to lean on these guys. I get to call them. I get to ask them about strategy. Like, hey, how did you navigate working with this retailer or this distributor and whatnot? So I kind of have this nice little ecosystem that is all kind of working together. And so everything is kind of building the other one up.
Ecosystem. I like that. And then one thing I just thought of, because you mentioned it before and you were like, we can get into it later. So I just want to ask you, why did you not tell people that you were in football? Why did you say like, oh, I'm in Minnesota for work? Did you like not want the recognition? Did you not want them to ask you for money? Like, why?
So they wouldn't put drinks on my tab is what it was. No, it was it was mainly because I think there was a lot of times as soon as you say that, it kind of changes the whole dynamic of when you meet someone. It's like, at that moment, for the rest of that interaction, are they treating you for how you actually are as a person? Like, oh, this guy's nice, he's cool, whatever it is, or are they like, now are they just, trying to be nice to you or, want to hang out with you because you play football? Or at the same time, it could be negative where they're like, oh, this guy thinks he's hot shit because he plays football or whatever. Instead of just kind of just being a regular person, like, take me as I am. Like, if you actually enjoy my company and whatnot, and then we'll eventually get into the fact that I play football if we hang out long enough. Like, eventually we're going to have that conversation of like, so what do you do in Minnesota? And things like that. So I just always liked to have people treat me just for who I am as a person and not for anything else. Because it can get kind of tricky to navigate after a while. And so I think having years of doing that, now I don't have to deal with the transition of, man, I used to introduce myself as a football player and get this great reaction. Now I have to like introduce myself as an entrepreneur, like whatever. And I don't get the same reactions. Like I've been used to just introducing myself as, oh, I do this and like not having any crazy reaction. So I think that actually has helped me in my post-career kind of transition.
Cool. Yeah, just curious. I thought of that. I was like, wait, we didn't talk about that yet. Yeah. Last question, and then tell us how we can connect with you, learn more about BrainTree and things like that. You've been through the struggle. You've been denied multiple times. And there's someone listening now, I can pretty much guarantee it, that's in that spot, that maybe it's the NFL, maybe it's not the NFL, where it's like that second, third, fourth, fifth, I don't know, umpteenth attempt at something that you maybe have a calling for. What would you tell that person listening now?
Yeah, I think we kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier as far as just pounding the rock and just staying with it. I always like the analogy of like fighting your way through the maze, and like there's going to be times where you're making progress and you're like, oh, I'm getting to the end, and then you realize you get into another dead end, and then you got to turn around and pivot and go the other direction. But if you just stick with it, you'll eventually get yourself out of there. And so I think that, along with that, I always say to play with confidence is something, I wish I would have told myself or done as a young player throughout high school, college, NFL, of just playing like you belong there, conducting your business like you belong there. Like, I'm a starter. I'm a solidified starter. Your business is a legit certified starter business, that level, that elite level. And so that would be probably the couple of tips that I would say.
Cool. Thanks. And then where can people connect with you? Website, social media, not your phone number.
Yeah, you can find us at BrainTreeNutrition.com. You can find us on socials at Take BrainTree. So go check us out.
Cool. And all of that I will put in the description, in the show notes, all the things. So for those of you listening, if you want to connect more with BrainTree, you can do so using those links. Andrew, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure. And yeah, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.